All right, and welcome to yet another episode of Man on Second Baseball. My name is Eric Wiedeke. This is actually my second show hosted. As always, I'm joined by Joe Frisaro, and we got a special guest on the podcast today. Joe, why don't you introduce him for everybody?
Yeah, and we're real honored to have Tom Koehler, former Marlins pitcher. I had the honor of covering Tom for when he broke in back in 12?
Yeah.
Tom? Yeah.
Yep.
And then even when Tom was drafted in '08, obviously I was following his career in the minors, and then he made the jump. I had the honor of doing that. And now Tom is retired, and he's doing the whole dad thing and living the good life. And we're real honored to get him on this show. And TK, can you just kind of, catch people up to speed, what you're doing? I know you're still involved in the game, but just kind of let the audience kind of know what you're doing right now.
So I retired back actually before the world shut down, last spring training before COVID hit. And since then, I took a job with the agency that represented me when I played I'm working as an agent, but also their director of pitching development. So I represent my own players, but anybody that we advise or represent, I kind of help them kind of jumpstart their career. And that way we're not just relying on organizations to develop these guys, but we can kind of try to figure out what's going to work best for them and help the developmental process.
Yeah. And just so the audience knows, I was just up at the Perfect Game event, the Wood Bat event up in Jupiter about a week ago. Sadly, I didn't bump into TK there, but he was there as well. I got a hotel up there. TK spent 3 days. I always look for excuses to spend a night or two in Jupiter anyway. And I got to see some really good young players. And I wanted to alert the audience, if you haven't, we'll retweet this as well. But I thought Tom had a very important, little video message in the terms of development and his opinion on showcases and just development of players. And yes, we get kind of wrapped up in tools. We're looking for high velocity from the pitchers, big time power from the hitters. And Tom's message was, dealing with guys aren't always learning the feel of the game, playing winning ball. This is granted, it's a showcase. It's a look at me type of event. However, to develop really good baseball game players and to take this sport where we wanted to keep going, you got to learn a lot more. And Tom, can you kind of explain why you did that message and what really?
Yeah. So part of my role now is to travel around and look for guys that we potentially see as potential big league baseball players, and that starts very young in high school level. One thing I've kind of noticed is travel baseball. When it first started, and I think back when I was playing in high school, travel ball was kind of the beginning. And you played on the same team, and you played in like leagues against, some had American Legion. I know in the Northeast and in the North that's big. We played a lot of different teams from New York, and you competed for a championship that way. Now what it's turned into is there's showcases roughly every weekend. You have guys that guest play on teams every weekend. I talked to a kid in Jupiter who 5 consecutive weekends, he played in 5 different events on 5 different teams. Mm-hmm. And what gets lost when you do that is you lose that feeling of playing for somebody other than yourself, right? Like when you're playing with someone for the whole summer and you're developing and you played with these guys for a while, you start doing the little things inside the game that kind of just comes with time and feel. You sacrifice at bats. You make pitches in certain counts. Like you're not just so caught up in the strikeouts and how hard you're throwing or home runs. And I believe I said it in the video, but I've said it a bunch of times. Like these players today are incredibly talented. Like the high school player today is better than I've ever seen. They're better. Some of them, and I said it too, some of these pitchers have better stuff than I had when I was pitching in the big league. But the problem is they're playing a worse style of baseball than I've ever seen. And they don't know where they're supposed. They don't know how to move it out the baseball. I don't think I've seen a guy hit a ground ball at second base in 2 years. The pitchers, I haven't seen a pitcher get out of the 4th inning. And, which is great, like you're showcasing yourself, but these guys that are moving on to these Power 5 conferences and Division I players, Florida State's not going to wait for you to develop. They're going to find a guy who can throw 6 innings. So if you can't throw 6 innings in high school, you're not doing it in D1. You're not doing it in pro ball. So, I think what's happened is guys have seen the style of play up top, and they've seen the homers and the 3 true outcomes. And the one thing about those guys, though, the guys in the big leagues that are doing that, they're the best in the world at what they do. So if the game were to change tomorrow, those guys would adjust to the new style of game, right? These young kids today are chasing velocities and not learning how to pitch. If their velocity goes, they have nothing behind it, right? The guys in the big leagues right now, if you told them, if they went and they changed the shifting rules and all that, you would see a different style of game. Guys would be putting ball in play more. They wouldn't be worried so much about the damage. We'd see the stolen base come back because the best in the world can make that adjustment. These young kids, we're teaching them how to play a style of baseball that might not even be there when they get to the big leagues.
Yeah.
How was that? Was that too long of a rant?
No, that's good, and we appreciate it. Eric, weigh in as kind of a Gen Z guy.
Yeah.
You're the young guy. We're trying to connect to you and what your generation wants to see out of players and what you see the game and how entertaining or lack of you see the sport.
Man, listen, I mean, I like the small ball aspect of it. I'm not a big fan of the 3 true outcomes. Strikeout, walk, homer. It's the 500-foot homers are fun. The 100-mile-an-hour fastballs are fun, but I do think that the stolen base, for example, is absolutely a lost art in today's game. Certain guys do it, but it's not as prevalent as it used to be. I also think that specialization in today's game is completely lost because everybody's trying to do just the same thing and kind of become the same archetype of ball player. And I think that kind of gets lost in the mix is, not everybody's skill set has to be the same. You can have guys with different skill sets and kind of build a team that way and have that be successful.
Yeah, and I think too, though, when we're teaching high school age kids,
mm-hmm.
their skill set's not going to be the same when they're 21 years old as it is at 15. Yeah. So you're teaching guys to do something. Like, I understand hitting the ball in the air. Like, yeah, if you hit the ball on the ground, you got a better chance to be out. It's just, that's how baseball's been. But when you're teaching 10-year-olds to swing up in the air when they don't even know how to hit the sweet spot of the barrel, you're teaching a little league kid to hit a pop-up to short.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have the strength to hit the ball to the gap.
Yeah.
Right? So I think kind of just got to go back to keeping it simple. How do you become a good hitter when you're young? You hit the ball hard.
Yeah.
The only thought you really need. Right? How do you want to get guys out? You throw strikes. As you get older, you throw strikes with multiple pitches. You'll learn to pitch. If that velo shows up and you already know how to pitch, well, then you're at an advantage from everybody else you're playing against.
Right.
TK, you touched on something a few minutes ago I thought was important because I talked to a lot of scouts and I hear the pros and cons of all of it. Mm-hmm. And you hit on something that was repeated to me and you phrased it the same way. The sport is chasing velocity. Mm-hmm. And you're basically developing a culture of relievers because guys aren't developing the secondary pitches. And you, as you know, you need at least 3 pitches to be average or better to be a bona fide big league starting pitcher. If you're a 1 or 2 pitch pitcher, chances are you're going to the pen. And as you noted, if all you're doing is max effort, and what do you lose with high velocity? Command. So the pitching aspect of it. So we're developing a culture of relievers. And meanwhile, if you talk to 30 GMs, they want 30 start. They all want culture of starters.
Well, the problem is, right, guys, the way starting pitchers are used, it's so much different than. I mean, I didn't pitch that long ago, and it's changed. Like gone are the guys that are going to go out there and eat the innings for your team, right? Keep you close enough and throw your 6-7 innings. Like they don't value the 4 ERA with 180 innings anymore, right? They'd rather take the best you have and burn out in 4 or 5 innings and turn it over to the bullpen. But as you've seen, I think last year, I don't know what the numbers were this year, but I think last year was the first time in a while that bullpen ERAs were higher than starter ERAs. Because the more these guys get seen, there's a reason why they're in the bullpen.
Yeah.
And if you keep overexposing it, you're going to expose the weakness that got them there, right? Maybe it is the third pitch. Maybe it's the lack of command. Maybe when he gets a little tired, the slider hangs. The more times you're out there, the more those get exposed. I would love to see baseball go back to big, or not even big, just workhorse style starting pitchers that are going to throw their 100 pitches and keep the team close, keep the pens fresh. But you don't see that. So why should a 16-year-old on a Sunday in Jupiter want to throw 7 innings? Nobody in the big leagues is doing it, so they think they don't need to. But if you're only training, like, the one thing we didn't have years ago was, like, we didn't have all these training facilities that showed their work actually, like, that their philosophies actually work to gain velo, right? We had ideas, but now with social media and everything, you can watch, and I won't say them by name, but you can watch all the different ones, show their velo programs, and show how a guy came in and went from throwing 88 to 96 in two years.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean the guy learned how to pitch. It means he has velo. And that guy gets the opportunity right now over the guy throwing 90 that can mix pitches.
Oh, it's a fascinating topic, and on the flip side, I look at it, Tom, just like perfect, just the event itself. We saw the wood bat tournament in Jupiter at Roger Dean Stadium. I kind of look at it as it's a showcase, almost like a combine, like the NFL combine. You have that environment just for the people that they know. And Tom will tell you, there's nothing but a sea of golf carts. And the best players have the most golf carts because they're where all the scouts are. Pretty much everyone on those rosters is already a college commit, and a good number of them are going to be drafted.
See, that's what's crazy about it. So I played in that event 18 years ago.
Yeah.
Same event. And the whole purpose of it then was to showcase yourself to colleges. For me, it was to go down south and hopefully pitch in front of a school that wouldn't get the opportunity to see me in the Northeast. Now, you're right. You look at the rosters, and it's not just the 2022 kids. It's the guys that are 2024 graduates already committed. So now the colleges aren't going there to look at guys. It's turned into I'm going to show myself for these pro teams, right? And that's great for, roughly, I think if I looked at the rosters correctly, that's great for 10 guys.
Yeah.
Right? 10 to 15 guys out of the 2,500 really benefited themselves. But the rest of them need the development of going to college and need to learn how to play the game.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. That's the point, and that's what I want to get at. Like I said, I could delineate between the perfect game. The beauty of what I love about it too is you get the best players in the country. You're facing the best, and I got to see that Tamar Johnson kid get a walk-off hit. Now there's a base open. He's normally, if you're just playing to win that game, you're walking him, but nobody wants to see maybe the best player.
But I saw one guy in a game, first batter of the game, threw a 3-1 breaking ball because he was afraid of the hit to lead off the game. And he walked.
See that I don't like that. I want to see if I'm a pitcher, I want to see if I can get that guy, even if he takes me yard.
Me too.
You're doing it. You're seeing, because you're not going to, when you get home, your high school opponent is not going to be as good as that kid. So I rather see.
And you may have one opportunity to get seen, right? Because somebody might be on a different field. Like, you might be playing against someone. They might not be there to see you, but you might have a chance to show what you can do and put yourself on that radar for further down the road, right? So there's so many pros and cons to it that, it's just grown so much, this event. Like, it was crazy. You couldn't walk anywhere. There was golf carts and people everywhere. And you're right. There were some like incredibly talented guys there.
Yeah. It's and for everyone in their market, And I always suggest people to try to get up to Jupiter when things are going on. But I relayed this story a couple of weeks ago as well. Just think about it, TK, back on those backfields, Yelich and Arenado were high school teammates on the Perfect Game team winning a championship when they were 17, 18 years old, and only the industry knew. So you're going to, those of us that were there, we're watching some really high-end future big leaguers there. And I think that's the fun part. But this is a very important conversation, and we could talk this all day. And it is something, because a lot of kids in South Florida play baseball, we know. And I hope a lot of people watching these podcasts and their parents recognize it. I want to shed light on this topic.
If I had one thing that I'd want someone to take out of this conversation, is for the guys playing and the parents of the players, don't play the game and don't go to these events and to play and do what you think the scouts want to see you do. Right? You can't play for the scouts. You can't play for the hopes of being drafted. You have to play your style of game, and you have to understand who you are as a player and become the best version of that. Because if you're a guy who can't hit homers and you're trying to hit homers, you're not going to look like a good hitter.
Correct.
So be who you are. You see too many guys chase the whole, I want to get drafted. Getting drafted is awesome. It's cool. But becoming the best player you can be and playing in the big leagues for a while is a lot cooler. And that should be the goal.
Yeah, that's a really important message. And we could talk this all day, but we got to get moving on. Eric, take us to our next topic.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we did want to get into the playoffs a little bit, touch on the ALCS and your former teammate Nathan Eovaldi, just some of the things that he's been doing, especially in the postseason in recent years. He's just been an ace for the Boston Red Sox. I mean, I'm sure it's no surprise to you. You saw him up close. Just talk about it a little bit.
Well, the one thing that people will tell you, anybody that knows Nate will tell you that he's got an infectious personality that it's very easy for, people to rally behind him and want to see him succeed, right? I don't think anybody would ever say a bad thing about Nate. And you match that with a tremendous work ethic and a tremendous right arm. He's built for the playoffs, right? Because that's a situation where those guys love him so much on that team that they're just going to have a will when he's out there that they're going to play well. It's a subconscious thing where, when you have that feeling about somebody, like they're not going to want to let him down. It's like what he showed in the World Series 2 years ago when they lost the game. And he went out there and he pitched like 6 innings in relief, I believe it was.
Yeah, even maybe more. The whole extra inning.
Yeah, those guys will run through a brick wall for that guy, and it's great. It's great to see. I mean, his stuff's tremendous. Like, what he's had to go through with the second Tommy John, and then when rehabbing back from that, he had another surgery to remove bone spurs, and he kept working. A lot of guys would have tapped out, been like, I'm done. I've had a good career, but that he's arguably better now than he's ever been. It's good to see because when I played with him, you're watching him, you're just like, what's missing? Why the stuff's all there, right? But why didn't we see the Nate now that back then? And then it just comes with growth. He knows now when to throw certain pitches. He added that little cut slider that really gives him something that can chase a barrel. He's in a situation where they want him to succeed just as bad as he wants to succeed.
TK, I'm curious on pitching in the playoffs, especially. We see so much with the data cards, and we're seeing and Eovaldi, like you say, he's a guy who's become a really good pitcher. Obviously we've known he had the 100 in his back pocket, but man, the secondary pitches, the wipeout, breaking ball. Yet you saw the dot on the NL side when the Giants, when Doval, I'm pronouncing it right, the closer, throwing to Bellinger, who has struggled with velocity this year, and just a stream of sliders to finally Cody got one and eliminates the Giants with that game-winning hit. And I think he threw like 15 pitches that inning, and like 13 of them were sliders for a guy who goes 100 miles an hour. So what are you seeing in terms of sequencing where obviously are we pitching to or playing to pitcher strengths or what a data card's telling us?
Well, I think and Posey does a good job back there. Like he has the information from the analytics department, but he has the ability to go on field too, and he's earned the right to, so he might have seen something that we're not seeing on TV, right? Like he might know that guy has no command of the fastball today, but the coaching staff might not see it. So he knows you got to keep going to the slider. But the one thing I have seen, and it's not just in the playoffs, guys are given so much information that there's not as much of like reading the swings and seeing what guys are trying to do that day and making the adjustments that way, right? You're facing batter X, you got to pitch him in. No matter what, I'm going to keep throwing him in, even though he's stepped in the bucket 4 times and he's looking for a fastball in. So maybe today's the day to go away. There's not as much of reading what the hitters are trying to do and flow of the game. It's a lot more scripted. It's almost like the Dolphins' first 15 plays of the game where Tua looks great because they know exactly what to do, right? But when you have to make the adjustments on the fly, things speed up, and you don't see the same success.
Those are great points, and that's what I love doing, watching the sequencing, watching the games within the game, because you see why certain teams are going home and certain are moving on, and just no mistake. And what are you kind of noticing, Tom, of the NL and the AL? Obviously, those lineups in the AL are very difficult to navigate, and you're seeing big runs there. And then the NL, the Braves, and this chess match right now.
Yeah, I'd love to say it's on the NL style of play versus the AL, but I think it's kind of, the Dodgers ran out 8 or 9 pitchers game 1, right? And all those guys have nasty stuff. Like, it's going to be hard to score runs that way. I'm a little surprised they haven't put up more runs themselves. But, like, you take Turner out of the game yesterday, like, he changes their whole lineup. Like, he just puts together, like, especially in the playoffs, quality at bat after quality at bat, makes the pitcher have to, really, really focus on making sure they get him out in a certain amount of pitches, because otherwise those at bats will last forever. Like, he's going to really work you. And in the AL, they just bang. Those guys bang. That's what they do. They hit and they hit, and the Astros are dangerous. Like, they're a dangerous team. The Red Sox have been playing great, and the series goes back there now. I mean, I don't know. I couldn't make a prediction on how this thing's going to end, because it's been such a strange year that nothing would surprise me at this point.
No, I mean, we're looking at 4 teams that all can win it. It's weird.
And I think if any of them did, I don't think it would be like, oh, that was a sleeper. I think you can make an argument for each one why they should win.
My last question on the playoffs before we move on to our final topic, Kike Hernandez. You saw him briefly, and then he at this time of year is a different guy. It seems like he's obviously a very versatile, very talented player, but man, he seems to rise in this time of year.
Yeah, and so we saw him with the trade in 2013, or was it 14? 14. So he got traded over in 14. He was so young then. Yeah. He was 21 years old, maybe.
He was pretty young.
Yeah, and even then, like, he was kind of learning. He was learning how to play center field. He played infield his whole life. He got traded over. Now he's playing center field. He was. So now you're learning a position like that at the big league level, where you have to learn how to hit big league pitching. But man, when I signed over with LA and I saw him in spring training, there was just a different guy. Like, he just had a presence, so much respect from the guys in the locker room, and he did so many, like, just could play every single position so incredibly well. It's just, I'm not shocked to see him have success in Boston. Like, he's a guy that I think feeds off those type of environments, because he's he has a big personality, as we saw when he was with the Dodgers and now with Boston. Like, I don't think he was able to let that show when he first got traded over, maybe as a younger player, but that guy's really made something of himself.
Yeah. Eric, take us to our final topic.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the last thing that we wanted to talk about was, we wanted to keep it a little bit local here with the Miami Marlins. Obviously, they've got a stable of young, promising arms. And, you know, somebody like Tom here knows better than anyone the adjustments that kind of have to be made on the fly when you're talking about going from maybe year 1 to year 2 at the major league level, and just that constant adjustment. So what is it like having to make that adjustment as hitters kind of figure you out?
I don't even know if it's so much the hitters figuring you out as like you're still trying to figure yourself out. Like I think for most guys, the first year is such a blur. You know, you get through it, but you don't really know how. Because I know for me and other guys that I played with in Miami, when you come up, if you're not a guy like Jose was, Fernandez, where you just come and light it on fire, you're always at risk of getting sent down. And it's changed a little bit now, and guys are being able to get a little bit more comfortable. But when you're pitching at that level and you're looking over your shoulder and you're wondering every time if you give up a run, if that's your last time, it makes it very tough. So the first thing is you get comfortable in your own skin as a big leaguer. Then year 2, you're trying to figure out what kind of big leaguer you're going to be, right? So it's almost like you're surviving at first. You start seeing guys like Trevor Rogers this year. His stuff's the same. He was as nasty last year as he is this year, but like you can just see he had a presence where he knew he belonged, right? He wasn't worried about, okay, am I going to get sent out? No, he was on that team and he just took off running. I think Sandy, like the stuff, if Sandy had a bigger personality, he would be a national superstar in this game. And I don't want him to change. I think it's great. The quiet, he leads by example. Anytime they pan into the dugout, you see him talking to guys when they come out of the game. Like he's very into every game. Like that's huge. And he's filthy. Like that's a guy that you let him go. You give him the ball, you let him run, and you let him go as long as you can, and let guys learn from him. It's nice. It's been enjoyable watching the young pitchers like as they come up. I mean, they're not real, maybe age-wise, but they're not that young anymore. I mean, Pablo's been doing it for what's next year going to be? His 4th year?
4 years, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so this is now they need to keep them on the field,
right?
And it's hard. I mean, every time you throw a ball, it could be your last time. I mean, you just never know when. Everybody's arm's going to go. It's just whether or not it's like when it's going to be.
Right.
You hope you get out of the game before it happens. But if you keep throwing, you always have that risk.
Kike, I really have learned the value. Game starts and innings pitch. I think we're so wrapped up in the high K rates and quality starts or whatnot. But I've never seen a season where more people applaud 4 innings and 9 strikeouts. Well, bullpen's going 5 innings again, and you as a guy with I think 3 in a row of 30+ innings at 175 to 185 to close to 200. Mm-hmm. What is that like to pace yourself to say, guess what? Maybe I strike a guy or two, and that's what I like about Sandy. He doesn't need to. Some nights he can strike out 12. Other nights he'll strike out 6, and he'll go 8 whenever you need him to go 8.
Well, I think it's like so important to understand the game, right? As my career got towards the end, it was those times of the Super Bowl pens and like wanting to, there were games where you got a 6-run lead and you got the 3-2 count with nobody on base. My thought is, I'm gonna throw a fastball down the middle. If he hits a homer, so what, right? I just don't want to walk him. I don't want to waste more pitches. So if he hits a homer, let's move on. Leading off and in with the lead. Throw a fastball down the middle. If he hits a homer, you're up by 6. Like he can't hit a 6-run homer. Start walking guys, they can. And I remember getting taken out of a game once and was told it's because I gave up a homer. I was like, I threw it down the middle. Like I didn't want to walk him. It's what was I supposed to do? I'm not tired. Let's move on to the next guy. Like this guy, it was enough. And I think it's on a whole nother level, but Max Scherzer, he gives up home runs, right? Because he attacks so much. And when you give him a lead, he's just in attack mode. He's not trying to strike out 15 guys. He may get it because his stuff's so good, and he's just, he's such a good talent. But when you give him a lead, watch how many times he's given up, a 2-run homer up by 6, because he's just attack. And the guys don't get the ability to pitch deep into the games if they give up 3 runs anymore. So now they're burning out by 4 or 5, trying to strike everybody out. So like, well, I'm going to go get mine while I can.
Yeah,
you know? And I don't think it's and that's why, like, these guys that are getting called up as relievers, how many of them are going to have sustainable careers throwing as often as they are? There's so much turmoil and turnover in the bullpens now. It's because guys they're getting shown. They're running out there all the time, and it's okay. Well, let's bring the next guy. Next guy's fresh.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I like, and there was no necessarily pacing, because I didn't know any different. Right? Like, so now if you told a guy who's never thrown, when I was coming up in the minors, I threw 170 innings before I got to the big leagues in a season.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I had to throw more innings than I did, ever in my career, but it wasn't like I was going from 120 to, 190. It was just over another month of the season. But like seeing that's why what Sandy did this year is incredible. 200 innings today is like back when guys used to throw 300. I mean, it's
very
unreal.
true.
Yeah,
It's unreal. To go out there and like just constantly keep him in it and make your 33 star. Like, he's an ace that doesn't really get talked about enough.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And we're gonna wrap it up there. And Tom, again, we really appreciate it. I wanted to get you on within this, hoping to get you on last week. We couldn't work it out, but I'm very appreciative you gave us some time this week. I thought these were really important topics, why I wanted to get you on in this little window of time. I hope our audience got something out of it too. And Eric, close the show, buddy.
Yeah, man. So I just want to thank Tom again. I know he's disappointed that it wasn't my good buddy Mike, but he'll get you next time.
I'm coming back for him.
I'll bet.
I got receipts. I got a lot of old tweets I need to talk to him about.
I don't even aware of this history now, and now I hear all this. So, but anyway, we hope it was a good experience for Tom, and we'll get Mike back in the chair soon enough to take the heat. So,
absolutely. You guys can follow us at Man on Second Baseball on Twitter. You can follow Tom at TK Refresh 22 on Twitter. Keep up with what he's doing these days. And as always, you can also catch us at 5 Reasons YouTube to watch the streams on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great one. Let's go watch some baseball.